Welcome to the Brian Craig Show podcast. My name is Brian, and this is where MAGA comes to talk. Welcome, one and all. We've got a lot to cover. There are a lot of press moments today with the war with Iran. And actually, what came out today is what the Iranian strategy is in this war. And I'm going to get into that in just a few minutes. And we got a lot to cover, so don't go anywhere. Your calls are also welcome at 888-465-2631. I want to start, though, with, I got a lot to cover. So there's been so much happening today. I'm going to go through a lot, and nothing is in any particular order here, at least not in the beginning, because so much has happened. I just want to get through this stuff and discuss it because it has to be discussed. Marco Rubio today and the rest of the team, which is CIA director, war secretary, and others, went and briefed the Senate today, right? They have to brief the Congress, they accountability and all that. And so there was a lot that happened in and around the Senate today, including our great Secretary of State, Florida's own, Marco Rubio. And Fetterman was there, hoodie and all. And this is Fetterman. Listen, Senator Fetterman, from the Democrat from Pennsylvania.
And it's more just now because of that. What this happens, you don't have to agree on everything, but it's like, yes, I'm the only Democrat because I'm not afraid of my base to just say, you know what, this was overall a good thing. You don't have to agree on everything. So I'm going to be honest. So, like, why can't you just acknowledge that one of the most evil people on the face of the earth was erased? That's a good thing.
Okay. Now, I was talking on yesterday's program that there's word that Fetterman is seriously considering running for president. And I agree with what he says there. There's no doubt about it. Fetterman says all the right things, but be careful. You know, the Democrat Party is filled with clowns, right? Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, who's completely insane. AOC ended her political career in Munich a couple weeks ago. So it's slim pickings in the Democrat Party. And as crazy as this sounds, if you put it in perspective from a couple years ago, John Fetterman is the most credible Democrat they got. And he's out there saying a lot of the right things. One of the reasons that we won the battleground states is there are people out there that may be registered Democrats but don't like this freak show that's taken over the Democrat Party, and they voted for President Trump and his endorsed candidates. You get Fetterman out there, although you put a suit on him, he's hardly recognizable. He might, but you put Fetterman out there on the campaign trail, and you got to remember, he's the sitting United States Senator from the state of Pennsylvania, which is a battleground state. We won the state of Pennsylvania last time. But Fetterman could win for the Democrats Pennsylvania. They've elected him statewide already. So beware of Fetterman. I'm telling you, don't get all excited about Fetterman. Beware of Fetterman. He's running an angle. He is a very pro-union Democrat. He's a liberal Democrat. I know it doesn't sound like he's a liberal Democrat when you hear him these days, but the Democrat Party has gotten so radical that anyone who sounds halfway reasonable sounds conservative. Make no mistake about it. Fetterman votes with the Democrats in the Senate most all the time. He is a liberal Democrat. He's just not dumb like AOC, and he's an American in his heart and mind, unlike Ilhan Omar and Tlaib and others. So don't be fooled by John Fetterman. Just my warning, it's just, I'm telling you, he's gearing up. That doesn't mean he's going to run for president, but he's preparing. Okay, so I do have a lot to cover, and I am going to go through a lot. I was reading today, let me pull this up. See if I can pull this article up. If it's, I don't want to read the article, but I was going to show you. I think it was in the New York Times. Let me see. I saw it on Drudge. The Drudge report is just filth. Let me see. I don't see the article on Drudge. I know I have it on my X. Well, anyway, I'll just tell you about it. There was an article in the New York Times that gave a lot of detail on what they believe is the Iranian strategy. And I'll tell you, I read the article, and it made a lot of sense. It is when you see what they're doing. And what the article in the New York Times said was pretty simple. It said that now we talk about, anytime we talk about Iran, we're talking about the Islamic lunatic religious fanatics that are, that have been running Iran since 1979. So when we say Iran, all of us, not just me, that's what we're referring to. But the Iranian regime, what their goal is to survive, meaning stay in power even at a reduced strength. So what Iran is trying to do is a couple of things. They've got two goals Iran is trying to achieve. Now, just because they're trying to achieve these things doesn't mean they have a hope or a prayer. I'm just telling you what their war strategy is, all right? Their first strategy is to hit as many targets as they can with whatever they got. Now, of course, today, I'm sure you've seen the news that they hit our embassy in Dubai. And we're going to be hearing about that all night and through tomorrow. They hit it with a drone. The United States and Israeli forces have taken out most of their rocket launchers. They don't have many rocket launchers left. There's very few rockets they're launching. But they do have drones. Iranians got a lot of drones. Remember, they were Iranian drones in Venezuela. And the drones are a little bit harder to detect because they can launch them from trucks and cars and other regular vehicles. So they do have their drones still, but their rockets are almost gone. But they've got two goals, either of which to Iran, if they can achieve either of these, they'll consider it a survival victory. The first one is do as much damage as they can, and part of that damage is getting gas prices high. So all these price gougers, I was talking this morning on the morning show. This morning when I left my house, every gas station that I drove by, except one, the gas was over $3 a gallon this morning for regular unleaded here in Florida. The one that was under $3 was closed. Okay, wasn't open yet. But when they open, I promise you, they raised the price. And this is price gouging. Okay, gas prices have gone up all over where I live in Florida, and I'm sure they have wherever you are around the United States and in other countries. This is price gouging. The local gas station owners are the gas that they have was refined with oil at previous prices. Okay, this isn't oil that was bought since Saturday when this war began. Okay, so they're just raising the prices, and on top of that, the United States and Venezuela now have a partnership. The United States and Venezuela, we're the two largest producers of oil in the world. The United States and Venezuela have more oil than all the other nations of the world. And we've got an alliance together now. The United States, we're the number one producer of oil. And under President Trump, drill baby drill, we are producing so much oil we can't even use all of it, and we are exporting oil. So there's no reason for your local gas station at this point in this war to have gasoline higher. They're just raising the prices. Remember, gas prices are determined by the local gas station owner. So they're just raising the prices. They did it a little bit over the weekend, a little bit on Monday. Now here around Tuesday, a little bit more. And they're blaming the war in Iran on it, okay? But Iran's strategy, so that's price gouging, which I thought was illegal. But anyway, the Iranians, they're trying to get the gas prices as high as they can worldwide, and your local gas station owner is helping the Iranians accomplish that. Another thing they're trying to do is inflict as much damage to try to get public opinion worldwide against President Trump and getting President Trump to declare victory and bug out and stop the war. That's their first. That's their first of two goals. If they can achieve either one of these goals, they'll consider it a victory, even though they've been totally wiped out and all these leaders have been killed and their country's taken such a hit and their navy's been sunk and all of that. As long as they're still in power, the Islamic Republic lunatics, as long as they're still in power, they'll consider that a victory. So that's their first option that they have in their war strategy, the Iranian. The second Iranian strategy is to drag this war out as long as possible past President Trump's term with the hopes that the next president will deal with them and end the war. That's what they're doing here. They'd rather do the first one because it'll get it over sooner. But that's what they're doing. That's their two strategies. And Marco Rubio today said what the president said today and the president said yesterday, and that is the biggest operation, the biggest military action that we're going to take has not happened yet against Iran. Marco Rubio said that today when he right before he went into that Senate hearing. So I don't know what that means. Maybe they're going to go in with those massive bunker busters and take out their underground bunkers. I don't know what that means, but everything we've seen so far, they've not done the biggest attack yet. According to Marco Rubio, just about an hour ago. Now, this strategy that I was telling you about of them trying to prolong the war, turn public opinion against the war, try to get President Trump to declare victory and end the war with them still in power and all of that. On this morning show, I was talking about Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Trader Green, and of course, Megan Tokyo Rose Kelly, and how they are doing this Tokyo Rose, Hanoi Jane Fonda routine to try to turn American public opinion against the war, which is inappropriate and over the line, and something we don't do while we have boots on the ground historically, and they're doing it. These are two guys that did a podcast interview. They are clerics with the Muslim Brotherhood, and they're talking about Tucker Carlson.
We've spoken about Tucker Carlson a lot in previous episodes, and
it's making some noise.
Yeah, you know what? I think he's an important person. We've got to follow him. Umar ibn Khattab. Now today, we know media is a powerful place, man. Right? If you win the media war, media.
Yeah.
Right? As in, if we took a victory from this, if there's anything for us to say we did this time with Allah's permission, tawfiq, it's media.
Yeah.
I'm saying this guy is, in my opinion, the strongest guy in the media right now.
Tucker Carlson. They're talking about Tucker Carlson.
I mean, yeah, his millions of views. Anytime he posts anything, I always monitor. Like, it's just the views are
It's
crazy.
not just that. This guy has got very strong footing and following, and he's
the
got
conservative
voice
in the right wing
in the USA,
yeah,
in the UK, and the Middle East.
And the Middle East. So there you have it. That's who's praising Tucker Carlson. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? That's nuts. And it backs up everything that I and others have said about Tucker Carlson as of late. It's really sad. I used to like him. I was always a little suspicious of Tucker because he came from CNN and then he was at MSNBC and all of that. But I liked his show on Fox. I watched it, and we've all were fans of Tucker. But either something has happened with Tucker, or he has revealed his true self to us. Whichever, it's not good. And you've got these Muslim Brotherhood clerics talking about basically what they're saying is that he's a useful idiot for their cause. And that's the last thing you want. You don't want to be a useful idiot for those guys, because those guys, they're rooting for Iran in this. Okay? So that tells you where Tucker Carlson, where his new fan base is. Here's Lindsey Graham today. Remember we had that big hearing with Marco and Hegseth and Radcliffe, the CIA director.
One of the things that really got President Trump going the most was after Midnight Hammer, we found that they were trying to regenerate their nuclear program. After basically months of negotiation, it was pretty clear that they're wedded to the capability they need to inflict terror, that the regime's goal is always to inflict terror and to push their religious agenda through force. And the missile buildup is designed to give them immunity in terms of developing their nuclear program. If we waited much longer, they're doing 100 a month. The idea of imminent threat to me is an odd thing. Who wants to let a homicidal maniac be able to get to the imminent stage of hurting you? If somebody is threatening my family, wants to rape your wife and burn down your house and kill your children, I don't want to wait till they get to the gun store and the gas station. Since 1979, this regime has been dedicated to chaos through their religious agenda. In 1983, 220 Marines were killed by Hezbollah in Lebanon, 18 sailors, 100 injured. Roadside bombs coming out of Iran have maimed and killed hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans. They mean it when they say death to America. I'm glad we didn't let it go further. I'm glad we didn't let them build more missiles. I'm glad we didn't let them regenerate after Midnight Hammer. So the idea that you're going to let a homicidal maniac get to the imminent stage, to me, is misplaced. So I've never felt better about how this ends. It's not if they fall, it's when they fall. It's not us alone, it's us with the region. Europe is now getting into the game. So I want to compliment President Trump for starting something that the world is now gravitating to. This regime is in its death throes. The amount of firepower coming in the next day or two from us is going to be overwhelming. And when you add to the mix the Arab capability, then it's going to be overwhelming. The demise of this regime is at hand. And the goal is to make sure they can never be a threat like they were before.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, that's Senator Lindsey Graham. And all the action was in the Senate today because the senior war cabinet had to go and brief the Senate. By the way, if you'd like to call in, the number is toll-free. The Brian Craig Show podcast is available wherever you get podcasts. Wherever you get your podcast, just search for The Brian Craig Show, and the podcast will come right up. If you want to catch the show live in video form, that's on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search for The Brian Craig Show, and I'll come up there, and that's where you hear me taking the live calls. And if you're watching live on YouTube, the toll-free number is pinned in the live chat, 888-465-2631. See, after we took out their nuclear facility a few months ago, they started doing it again. And on top of the fact that they've been trying to assassinate the president, President Trump said on Sunday to ABC News, when he was talking about the Ayatollah Khomeini, he said, I got him before he got me. They tried to get me twice. So there were 2 assassination attempts that he said Iran attempted against him. Which ones those are, we don't know. Is it Butler? Is it the golf course? Is it the sniper's nest at the airport? Is it the guy who drove through the front gate at Mar-a-Lago a week and a half ago? Or are there 2 other incidents that we don't know about that haven't been reported? We don't know. The president didn't tell us. But that alone is reason enough to carry out this operation if they did nothing else. But they have been behind almost 100% of the Islamic terrorism since 1979. And President Trump is sick of it. He's tired of that. He's tired of having to worry about his life because they're constantly trying to assassinate him. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, there's been a long time since we've had a war that was justified like this. I mean, Pearl Harbor justified the Second World War. This most definitely is justified. All right. Here's Secretary of State. If you're on hold, hang in there. We'll take some calls in a bit. This is Secretary of State Marco Rubio today. He had a press conference before he went into to brief the senators.
The United States made a decision. Under the President of the United States made a decision. This is intolerable. Iran cannot have these missiles, cannot have these drones, cannot threaten the world. The President said this is the weakest they've ever been. If we don't hit them now, a year from now, a year and a half from now, no one will be able to touch them, and they'll be able to do whatever they want. And he made a decision to go. And he made a decision to go in a joint operation because it gave us the highest chance of success. And he made the decision to go first because he concluded that we were not going to get hit first. We were not going to absorb a blow from them. We were going to go first. He was not going to run the risk that they could attack us before we could hit them, because in addition to costing lives, it would undermine the effectiveness of our operation.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. That's it. And what a great cabinet we have. I mean, there is 100% unity among this cabinet. They're just doing a great job.
Listen, let me explain to you guys this in simple English. Okay? Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics. They have an ambition to have nuclear weapons. They intend to develop those nuclear weapons behind a program of missiles and drones and terrorism that the world will not be able to touch them for fear of those things. And this is the weakest they've ever been. Now is the time to go after them. The president made the decision to go after them, take away their missiles, take away their navy, take away their drones, take away their ability to make those things so that they can never have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president made this decision. It was the right decision. And the world will be a safer place when these radical clerics no longer have access to these weapons. You see how they're using them now. Imagine how they would use them a year from now if they had more of these.
Yeah, and if they had a nuclear weapon, is there any doubt in your mind that they would have used it this week? Absolutely, they would have used it. I mean, they bombed their own schools. You know, that's those school kids that were killed over the weekend. They were trying to blame the United States for it. Iran launched a rocket at one of their own schools with children in it, just for a news cycle, trying to get some PR. You don't think they'd use a nuclear weapon on Israel or us or anyone? Of course they would.
I would argue that this threat from Iran, they are hiding behind these missiles and hiding behind these drones. They wanted to reach a point where you couldn't touch them, and then they could do whatever the hell they wanted with their nuclear program. There is no way in the world that this terroristic regime was going to get nuclear weapons, not under Donald Trump's watch.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And part of the timing is, President Trump wanted to do this before we have the midterm elections, because what happens in the midterms is an unknown. I think we're going to win. I mean, things are all in our favor to win, but if we don't, who knows? What the Congress will do. We know that if the Democrats take over, they're going to impeach President Trump every week, and not just President Trump. They're going to impeach members of his cabinet, like Marco Rubio, like Pete Hegseth, like Kristi Noem. You can impeach cabinet members too, and that's what this is what this country would be like if the Democrats win. So part of the timing wasn't just they were all in the room together. He had to get this done before the midterms.
I was asked a very specific question, so you guys can misrepresent it, but I was asked a very specific question yesterday. The bottom line is this. The president determined we were not going to get hit first. It's that simple, guys. We are not going to put Americans' troops in harm's way. If you tell the president of the United States that if we don't go first, we're going to have more people killed and more people injured, the president's going to go first. That's what he did. That's what the president will always do. He will always put the safety and security of our men and women in uniform and of all Americans before anything else. He's always going to do that, and that's what he did here.
Yeah, exactly. I was so impressed. I'm always impressed with Marco Rubio, aren't you guys? I mean, he is a super impressive guy, and today he was really on it. He is the greatest Secretary of State that this country has ever had, no question about it. He is just so good, so confident, and he has that presidential charisma, doesn't he?
There's a general question of why the president gave the green light, and then there's a question of why did it have to happen this weekend? Are you saying it had to happen this weekend because of that Israeli action?
No,
notice that because of that Israeli action. See, they're always trying to blame Israel. All the anti-Semites in the media, the never-Trumpers, are almost universally anti-Semitic. They always want to blame the Jews for everything.
The general question of why the president gave the green light, and then there's a question of why did it have to happen this weekend? Are you saying it had to happen this weekend because of that Israeli action?
No, this weekend presented a unique opportunity to take joint action against this threat. And we wanted this to have maximum success. We want this operation to be successful at achieving its objectives. I'll repeat the objectives. The president laid them out yesterday. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It cannot have, and therefore it cannot have the things it was hiding behind to have a nuclear weapons program. What are those things? Number one, we are going to destroy their missiles and their missile launchers. We are going to destroy their capability to make these missiles and these launchers, and we are going to destroy their Navy. Those are the objectives, and this weekend, acting at this time, gave us the highest probability of success in achieving those objectives, and as the Department of War will brief you, we are on or ahead of schedule to do that.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. If you're on hold, hang in there, all right? I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll take some calls. I want to finish up with Marco Rubio, and also the president had a press conference today with the German chancellor. I want to play some of that too. All right. My name's Brian. This is the Brian Craig Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast. We'll be right back. On the line, we have Bruce. Bruce is a client of Jupiter Joe Thomas. He heard me talking with Joe Thomas about annuities and what a great deal they are, and he went in with his wife, and now he's a client. Hey, Bruce, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Brian.
So tell me about your experience with Jupiter Joe Thomas.
A fine gentleman. We sat down with Joe, and we explained everything to him, and we brought all our information, and he worked everything out great.
The cool thing about annuities is your money's never at risk. You're guaranteed a revenue stream for the rest of your life, but there's a bonus, really a signing bonus, where you can make a boatload of money before you even leave Joe Thomas's office. Can you talk a little bit about that, Bruce?
Well, that's where I was surprised when we sat down. We talked about the bonuses, and to my amazement, it was 10%, and there was even another one that's bigger.
Wow, that's amazing. So you made 10% on your money before you even got back in your car.
Yeah, it was more than that, but it was great.
Listen, guys, do what Bruce did. Give Jupiter Joe Thomas a call. You can set up a free consultation either on the phone or in the office, and Joe Thomas will put together a custom proposal just for you. His number is 561-743-0999. 561-743-0999, and online at jupiterjoe.com. All right, Bruce, thanks so much.
All right, thank you, Brian.
We're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Brian, this is Hank from Hollywood. How you doing?
All right, Hank, what's on your mind?
I called Tom Laporta at Tom Laporta Roofing. He sent out Scott. Now, Scott is absolutely the best. Scott and Scott's crew are the absolute best. They gave me a great price. They did the job when they said they were going to do it. They finished the job when they said they were going to do it. The materials they used, absolutely the best. I want to thank Tom. I definitely want to thank Scott, and definitely want to thank Scott's crew. These people are number one, and I just want your listeners to know, Tom Laporta at Tom Laporta Roofing. If you need a new roof, call Tom at Tom Laporta Roofing. You're not going to go wrong. You're not going to be disappointed.
Do what Hank did. Call Tom Laporta at Laporta Roofing on his cell phone, 954-604-4602, 954-604-4602, and online, laportaroofing.com. Looking for more patients? ProvidersNook.com helps healthcare professionals get discovered. ProvidersNook.com's easy-to-use directory connects local patients with doctors, therapists, and clinics, so your practice stands out when it matters most. ProvidersNook.com makes healthcare easier to find. Patients quickly discover trusted providers nearby, and healthcare professionals gain more exposure, more bookings, and more growth, all in one powerful directory. Best of all, it's very affordable. Go right now to ProvidersNook.com. That's ProvidersNook.com, your premier healthcare provider directory. ProvidersNook.com. All right, we're back. I'm Brian. It's the Brian Craig Show. Calls on hold. You hang in there. Okay, so I'm going over some of the press conferences today. There were quite a few, and Marco Rubio was on fire. You know, the way that this war with Iran has been handled, you know, when I watch the news coverage, I find it to be a lot different than the other wars we've been in. Now, number one, we don't have boots on the ground, like officially. We got to have some CIA and special forces embedded in there probably, but we don't have boots on the ground. So that's one difference. But the other one is it's the way that the administration are using the media. Since the Gulf War won in 1991, right, when we liberated Kuwait, we would get camera views from the bombs, from the rockets as they were hitting the buildings and all kinds of things like that, right? We're not getting a lot of that. We're seeing some explosions and we're seeing this and that, but we're not seeing, we're not seeing these press briefings with the generals that are overseeing this war, or the Secretary of War, or the president or others kind of like, almost gloating like it's a video game. Have you noticed that? And I'm not sure why they're doing that. They have their reasons. And one thing President Trump understands more than maybe any other American alive is he knows how to use the media. So if he is not having them show that stuff like they've done in all the combat missions since the 1991 Gulf War, that's a strategy he's decided to do.
I said this yesterday, and I repeat, what's about to, you're about to see, we're going to unleash Chang on these people in the next few hours and days. You're going to really begin to perceive a change in the scope and in the intensity of these attacks.
Okay, this Chang, release Chang, I may be wrong, and people will comment and let me know, but what I believe the Chang is a reference to is Chiang Kai-shek. I could be wrong. I think it's a reference to that. And it's one of those sayings people use that, I don't know, maybe they don't know, like, and Bob's your uncle. A lot of people don't know what they use the expression Bob's your uncle, but they don't really know where it comes from and everything else. It's not an American phrase, Bob's your uncle, but you know what I mean? But release Chang, what I think that means is that means a big battle. They're going to unleash major weaponry, and it's going to be just a bloodbath until it's over. That's what I think that means.
I said this yesterday, and I repeat, what's about to, you're about to see, we're going to unleash Chang on these people in the next few hours and days. You're going to really begin to perceive a change in the scope and in the intensity of these attacks as, frankly, the two most powerful air forces in the world take apart this terroristic regime and defang it and take away its ability to threaten its neighbors or hide behind a zone of immunity that allows them to develop their nuclear ambitions. This terroristic, radical, cleric-led regime cannot be ever allowed to have nuclear weapons. We saw what they were willing to do to their own people. They were willing to slaughter their own people in the streets. Imagine what they would do to us. Imagine what they would do to others. Under President Trump, that will never, ever happen.
You see, the way Iran worked, the Ayatollah Khomeini is a relative of the original Ayatollah Khomeini, right? That's why they have the same name. Ayatollah Khomeini 1, Ayatollah Khomeini 2, and this Ayatollah was in power since 1989. And that big attack where we got 40 or so of their top people, which included the supreme leader, the Ayatollah's wife, and his son was expected to be the successor. And today they had their big governing council was meeting, and they were going to pick a new Ayatollah. It was the son. This was meant to be passed on through the family, like a royal title, right? But the son's dead in the initial attack. So what happened? President Trump and Israel blew up the meeting where they were meeting to pick a new Ayatollah. And the way that the Iranians were picking up so much about how the Iranians were operating and in their mind playing the world, they believed that they had a dynasty here, that the Ayatollah Khomeini family had a dynasty, like a royal line. So no matter who the supreme leader was, it was going to be a Khomeini, and the Khomeinis are going to be here past the presidents and prime ministers, right? I mean, how many prime ministers and presidents did Queen Elizabeth see in her time? I don't know how many prime ministers, but every president. Who was president when she became Queen Elizabeth? Was it Truman, right? So that's how the Iranians view things. So they think they can ride out every democracy in the world because of that. So that's why they're taking out their whole system. What President Trump and Netanyahu, what they're doing is destroying not just their ability to build nuclear weapons and other weapons. They're doing that. But they're also taking out their ability to form any future government. And whoever is in charge now, they've got to be to like the 4th, 5th, 6th level. Who's ever in charge today, who's ever in charge of the armed forces and everything. How high up were they last week? Right? If you went to them on Friday, because the initial attack happened Saturday morning, the guys that are in charge now, how far down the chain of command were they Friday last week. I don't know. It'd be interesting to know. So the guys that are running things now are not the top guys. All right. So let's get back to this. Or maybe it was Eisenhower. Was it Eisenhower or Elizabeth? When Elizabeth became queen, was it Eisenhower or Truman? I want to say Truman, but it could have been Eisenhower. I don't know. All right. I think it was. Could have been Eisenhower. I don't know. I wasn't alive, okay? It was a long time before I was alive. All right, back to Marco Rubio.
With an update, I will obviously refer you to the Department of War. Suffice it to say that our objectives remain as they've been identified from the beginning and by the President laid out clearly yesterday. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, and we will now not allow Iran to hide behind the immunity of a massive short-term ballistic missile inventory or the ability to make them or launch them. And so CENTCOM, in a joint operations, is carrying out a systematic destruction of their missile belt, destruction of their launchers, and destruction of their ability to make these, as well as the destruction of their Navy. From what I've been told by the Department of War, everything is on or ahead of schedule and proceeding on these objectives. We have every confidence in the world that these objectives will be achieved with enough.
Yeah, and see, one of the reasons that Iran's goal of trying to prolong the war until President Trump's no longer president, one of the reasons that's not going to work is because President Trump is not going to show weakness to Putin or China in particular. So whatever it takes, President Trump is going to push this till the end. Now, the media, because come Saturday, we're going to be a week into this, right? So what the media are going to try to do is declare a loss soon, because they've got in their mind a month. So if the fighting goes on longer than a month, the media are already setting the stage to declare this a loss. All right, back to Marco.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran, and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get.
Yeah, your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked.
Okay. No, were you the one that? Because somebody asked me a question yesterday. Did we go in because of Israel? And I said, you asked me that. That follow up, and I said no. I told you this had to happen anyway. The president made a decision, and the decision he made was that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ballistic missile program, that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ability to conduct these attacks. That decision had been made. The president systematically made a decision to systematically destroy this terroristic capability that they had, and we carried that out. I was very clear in that answer. This was a question of timing, of why this had to happen as a joint operation, not the question of the intent. Once the president made a decision that negotiations were not going to work, that they were playing us on the negotiations, and that this was a threat that was untenable, the decision was made to strike them. That's what I said yesterday, and you guys need to play it. If you're going to play these statements, you need to play the whole statement, not clip it to reach a narrative that you want to do, all right?
Yeah, I love how he's tearing down the media because they're jerks. Yeah, so if you remember last week, a couple days before the State of the Union, when President Trump had the angel families at the White House, and he was in the East Room, and remember what he said? He said, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here, right? They keep coming at me. They keep trying to get me. And, and that was a couple days after that latest assassination attempt at the White House, at Mar-a-Lago. A couple of Sundays ago. So, one of the things President Trump is doing here, right? He's got that border peace with Gaza, and he's gotten to be friends with all of these Middle Eastern leaders, including that guy that's running Syria now that used to be with ISIS and stuff. Okay, and they've told him, we want peace too, but the problem's Iran. And President Trump, he's afraid they're going to get to him. This guy's had more assassination attempts against him than anyone. I didn't realize Making America Great Again was so controversial, but liberals can't stand it. And he knows, because, well, he's lived life and he's seen it, but also these Middle Eastern leaders are telling him that all the terrorism is coming from Iran. Remember, the troubles in the Middle East, it's not Israel. Israel is not responsible for the troubles in the Middle East. It's always been Iran. And he's afraid that he has a limited time because of all these things that have happened. So he also wants to get this done while he's here and can do it. What he's really doing is giving the world a gift of ridding us of this major terrorist government in Iran. All right, back to Marco Rubio. Isn't he great, Marco Rubio? Just a great press conference today.
We have identified and continue to identify charter flights, military flight options, and expanded commercial flight options, meaning working with the airlines to send bigger airplanes with more seats.
Okay, now what he's talking about here is evacuating people, and they're evacuating more Americans out of the Middle East. I do want to take a quick break, and when we get back, the president was speaking today in a press conference. I want to go through some of that, and if you'd like to support my content, which of course is everything I do, my YouTube channel, my podcast, my morning show, everything I do, become a Patreon supporter. There's a link to my Patreon page in the description of this and every episode, okay? And if you become a Patreon supporter, you get access to commercial-free editions of all my podcast episodes, access to exclusive live streams on the Patreon platform that are not seen by anyone else other than Patreon supporters. And those are troll-free chat, live stream chats that I have there. And you also get access to a lot of exclusive things that my wife and I post there that we post nowhere else. If you become a top Patreon supporter, you get your name up on the screen here on YouTube, and you get a live on-air thank you shout out on every episode. So the names you'll hear now are my top Patreon supporters. I want to thank SFjr, Christine, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, Nick, Wesley, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, LeeZep, Shawna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, Tina, David, Laura, Rob, Wes, Sue, Janice, Teresa, Irene, Doris, and Rick. These are my top Patreon supporters. Thank you for your support. Again, to become a Patreon supporter, there is a link in the description of this and every episode. We'll be right back.
In the holy city of Helvar, oaths aren't just spoken, they're carved into stone and burned into flesh. From author Chase Powers comes an epic fantasy where faith is weaponized, mercy is dangerous, and the truth has a long memory. Star Forged Oath, available on Amazon. Kale Ren wants only 3 things: to stay alive, get paid, and avoid anything resembling belief. Instead, he's bound to a sentient star-forged sword that remembers every broken vow and hates the men who called themselves holy. As sacred trials turn bloody and the city's most revered legends begin to crack, he's forced to choose between survival and exposing a lie powerful enough to burn a kingdom. Star Forged Oath is full of sharp banter, found family, corrupted holy orders, and magic that always comes at a cost. If you like swords that argue back, heroes who question the gods, and stories where mercy is the most dangerous weapon of all, Star Forged Oath is your next must-read book. Available right now on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and free with Kindle Unlimited. Order your copy right now and step into the crater. Have you ever looked at your own emotions and thought, why do I feel this way? Life isn't just good moments and breakthroughs. There are bad seasons, there are ugly emotions, and there is growth hidden in both. In the podcast, The Bad, The Ugly, The Good, and Healing You, Dr. Janita Griffin, also known as Dr. G, helps you make sense of what you're feeling so you can stop feeling confused and start feeling empowered. Each episode is an honest conversation that explores grief, loneliness, attachment, emotional conditioning, and real-time healing. When you listen in, you'll learn to name your emotions, understand them, and move forward with clarity, without shame, because real emotions deserve real healing. If you've ever felt stuck in patterns you don't understand, this is the podcast you will want to add to your playlist. The Bad, The Ugly, The Good, and Healing You is available on YouTube, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Podbean, and everywhere else you get your podcast. Tune in, start understanding your feelings, and start healing right now. From author Tony Soika, who was named 2026's Best New Author in Veteran Fiction by Insider Weekly, comes a vigilante justice thriller for fans of Jack Reacher, military suspense, and stories that fight back against animal cruelty. Pit Bulls in Paradise, available on Amazon. After 30 years in the Army and 3 brutal combat deployments, John thought he'd finally found peace in Key West. But Paradise has a dark side when he discovers a savage dogfighting ring tied to ruthless criminals and abused pit bulls. Forced into bloody battles, he can't walk away. Haunted by war, driven by loyalty, and fueled by his love for man's best friend, this veteran becomes a one-man army against evil. Now, the hunters are the hunted, and one wrong move could cost John everything. Justice is coming, and it has teeth. Order your copy right now on Amazon, in Kindle, paperback, and free with Kindle Unlimited. Pit Bulls in Paradise, from author Tony Soika, on Amazon.
All right, we're back. I'm Brian. It's the Brian Craig Show podcast. Thanks for joining. And remember, the Brian Craig Show podcast is available wherever you get podcasts. Just search for the Brian Craig Show. All right, so the president had a press conference today with the German chancellor. And there's some clips of that I want to play because, of course, we got this massive war going on.
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to...
Hear this? Always back to blaming the Jews. Boy, I tell you, anti-Semitism is something that we pretty much eliminated in the United States, and it is back like nobody's business. It's really sick.
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact.
Yeah, this theme that they've been going, oh, well, Israel pushed us into this. Nobody pushes President Trump around. Give me a break. But the anti-Semites, they're hiding behind this phrase, and America First. And they have hats that say America First. And, most every America First hat I've seen, they're all worn by the anti-Semites. You know who they are. Did you notice what color it is? The America First hat? Have you noticed this? Most of them. What color are they? You know what color they are when you see them? Blue. That's right, blue. They're not red. They're Democrat blue. And when they use that phrase, America First, that's their code word for blaming the Jews, for blaming Israel. It's the same thing, right? It's really sad. And they're trying to get that branding going. It's the Democrats, if you remember, this changed at the first No Kings event. But the Democrats notoriously did not have American flags at their events unless they were burning it, right? And President Trump and others in the MAGA movement started pointing out they never have American flags. Then all of a sudden, I go to the No Kings event, and this was true of the ones I saw online all over the country. I went to the one in Fort Lauderdale here in Florida. They all have brand new American flags at all of them. They're trying to act like they're, patriotic people, the Democrats, when in fact the opposite is true. It's always been true. They've never been patriots. Democrats have always been the opposite. Now, I explain this a lot. If you look at almost every single action the Never Trumpers have done to President Trump, most of it is when they're not shooting him in Butler or trying to at the golf course and they're driving through the front gates at Mar-a-Lago and such. The rest of what they do is try to turn MAGA opinion against him. So they got a couple things they're running, a couple rackets they're running. And one of the grifts is this big lie that all these MAGA voters regret their vote and they're no longer MAGA. They're no longer Republican. I get calls like that on the show sometimes, right? That's complete BS. not just with this president. That's an old tactic. Remember, the late, great Rush Limbaugh always said the Democrats have that old worn-out playbook. They always go back to it, run the same plays. Every Republican president, when there's something like this going on in the news, all the Democrats claim, they call me, they claim to be lifelong Republicans, but now they can't be Republican anymore because of what that particular. That's an old tactic. That's BS. So that's one grift. The other grift they're doing is they're trying to pass themselves off as MAGA, but President Trump is not the man they voted for. He is not America first. He's Israel first. And they got this America first rhetoric going on with their blue hats that say America first on them. And America first, I mean, that sounds like a good thing. I mean, you know, I support America, and America is the best country in the world, and it's America before any other country. We all support that. So whoever came up with that scam, it's a good attempt, but we're on to them. So anytime now, a lot of these people that are running around with their America first hats on, they're useful idiots. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're saying. They don't understand what I'm sharing with you and the lowlifes that are behind them and all of that. But make no mistake about it. All these people with their America First hats, in particular the blue ones, there are in other colors, but some of the leading people have their hats in blue. They're anti-Semite, never Trumpers, Democrats. They're even out there telling you now to vote Democrat in the midterm. I mean, think about that. What kind of Republican would say vote Democrat in the midterm? You know, I got a lot of problems with Marco Rubio. People, you know, because he betrayed President Trump. I'm not going to go through all that, but he did, okay? Talked about it a lot. And people, you know, will say, well, what if he runs? What will you do? Well, if he runs as an example for the United States Senate here in Florida, and he wins the primary and he's on the ballot, of course I'm going to vote for Marco Rubio over the Democrat. If my choice is between Marco Rubio or the Democrat, of course I want to vote for Marco Rubio. Any Republican would. You're not going to vote for a Democrat that's for high taxation, open borders, pro-abortion, and all that. You know, the Democrats, one of the things they want to do when they get in power is pass a law making Roe v. Wade the law of the land. See, Roe v. Wade was overturned because there's no law mandating it. But they want to pass a law, and if they get a Democrat president, they'll sign it. Right? So for someone to say, well, you know, I'm MAGA, I voted for Trump 3 times. Some of them say twice because they're too stupid to know that he ran 3. But I'm not voting Republican any longer. I'm voting Democrat. You're going to vote to reopen the border and bring tens of millions of illegals here? You're going to vote for transgender men and women's sports? You're going to vote for open borders and all of that? You're going to vote for abortion? You're going to vote for higher taxes and raising all the taxes? That doesn't even... Anybody who would do such a thing is not a real conservative. You know, somebody the other day was giving me a hard time on the show. I can't remember if it was the podcast, the radio show. I can't remember. I do so many shows and streams and everything else. I can't remember which is which. But somebody said the other day, who'd you vote for when Romney ran? And I said, well, Romney. And they said, well, Romney's a jerk. Yeah, but what was I going to do? Vote for Obama? Yeah, he was a jerk. We weren't as on to Romney then as we are now. But a Republican, you have to vote for Romney over Obama because of the reasons I just stated. So these people that are out there claiming to be the true conservatives and Donald Trump, they voted for him once, twice, 3 times, but this isn't the man I voted for. BS. This is exactly the man you voted for. But no true conservative, no true Republican would ever vote Democrat. At the worst, they just wouldn't vote, which is the same as voting Democrat. But to actually go out and say vote Democrat, no true conservative would do that. Now, if you're on hold, hang in there because I'll be live tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Eastern, as I am every weekday morning, right here on the channel. The radio show starts at 6 a.m., and I usually come on before that here on YouTube. So if you're on hold, hang in there. You'll be first in line on the show in the morning, okay? And if you're new to the program, make sure you subscribe, click that notification bell. And everyone who's subscribed, do me the favor of liking the video. When you like the video, it helps people find this channel that have not yet found it. So please make sure that you subscribe and like the video, all right? My name is Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. Take care.